Welcome to today's CRM Magazine Roundtable web event, brought to you by Pitney Bowes and Transversal. I'm David Myron, Editorial Director of CRM Magazine, and I'll be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled, Craft Consistent and Personalized Communications Across Channels. Now, to introduce our speakers for today's event. Lisa Sutrick is the Managing Director of Customer Engagement Solutions at Pitney Bowes, and Chris Hall is the Chief Marketing Officer at Transversal. So now, without further ado, let me pass the event over to our first presenter, Lisa Sutrick, Managing Director of Customer Engagement Solutions at Pitney Bowes. Welcome to the broadcast, Lisa.
Great, thank you, and welcome everyone. Today we're going to focus on several different topics. We're just going to take a step back and look at the business problem and kind of outline where we're at today and where we know our customers want to head. We're going to look at some different ways that we can solve that problem and then ways that Pitney Bowes can help you with that. So it's no secret that in today's market, being a marketing, customer service, operations, or customer experience executive is a high-wire act. The present business climate is creating a sense of urgency for building stronger customer relationships and more positive customer experiences. Let's face it, we live in the age of the customer, and in fact, we're all consumers ourselves, and we have much different expectations than we had 5, 10 years ago of how we interact with companies. So the day of organizations being able to do traditional segmentation-based marketing and pushing information out to consumers are really gone. Customers really want to control the interactions that they have with you. They want to be able to come to you on mobile channels, on social channels. They want to be able to come to branch offices at their leisure. They want to be able to pick up the phone still and have phone interactions with folks. And so really, the problem of being able to communicate with consistency on multiple channels is enormous. Some other things are also impacting the ability to be able to do this. Focus on the customer is a strategic imperative at a lot of organizations, but they often struggle to do that across the entire customer lifecycle. The increased pace of change of business is just unbelievable with the Internet of Things and all of the information that's out there available to you as vendors, and consumers are just making this magnificent. The other thing that's really important is, as a consumer, we definitely trust our peers more than we trust organizations that we do business with these days. And so living in that social world, understanding that, if a consumer tweets something, they're going to tweet negatively 10 times more often than they will in a positive way. And so there's all kinds of risks associated with having bad customer experiences and engagements. All of this you're supposed to be able to manage while reducing your budgets and tightening your belts, which makes it really, really difficult. In addition to that, there's also all kinds of new regulatory requirements, compliance requirements that are in play, making your job more difficult, as well as things that happen around mergers and acquisitions and all of the different things that those come with. Now, as we look at the customer life cycle and we try to think about what are all the different ways that a customer does business with us, there are all kinds of different challenges that organizations have in order to be able to communicate effectively across these. Thinking about marketing as one line of business or organization, the line of business itself, the back office IT support. Think about all of the different tools and software solutions you have in place. Think about all of the different ways that you're communicating out of all of these different systems that don't talk to each other as part of the system back-end process, and in fact as part of the human process as well. We've done a lot of work with our clients where we've brought together marketing, line of business, IT to the table to have discussions where the number one thing they're asking for is, please help us communicate with consistency and relevancy at all of our customer touch points. And in those same meetings, we've ended up introducing the marketing team to the IT team at an individual organization. And so it's just difficult to be able to think about solving this problem across all of these different things. Now, if you couple that with the legacy systems that you probably have in place, the vast silos of data that you have in the back office, and the different demands and different priorities that each of the businesses has, this makes it even more difficult. So what does that result in if we looked at that from a problem perspective? From a customer lifetime value perspective, this is really one of the ways that marketing often uses to measure the success of the things that they're doing within their business. But as we start to shift the focus from traditional lifetime value, which is often a single one-time measure, to real lifetime value, which is something that we want you to start thinking about as an ongoing, always-on measurement, it also has to extend beyond marketing. Now, we all know that it costs between 6 and 7 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing customer. We also know things like a 2% increase in customer retention has the same impact as decreasing costs by 10%. And so, those are, pretty easy metrics that everybody can talk about. But the thing that may be surprising to you is that 40% of organizations that we talk to cite complexity as the greatest barrier to improving the multi-channel customer experience. So all the things that I just talked about related to silos, separate and disparate systems, separation between your organizations really just make the job very, very difficult. Now, some of the problems that come into play around this are, if you think about your information in your data, there are still data silos. Even though data warehouses have been technologies and techniques that have been out there for more than 10 years, oftentimes we still have data silos across the organization. So you've got a lot of good information about your customer, but it's siloed, and trying to bring that together is difficult. And in addition to that, any analysis that you're able to do is pretty much historical and static. So you're always doing a look back at the information that you have, which makes it difficult to make good decisions about how to use that data. And then in the end, you're delivering inconsistent experiences across your different channels because they're either pre-scripted, they're outdated, or frankly, they're just difficult to change. And then finally, as you look at how could you action that, oftentimes it's the act of a human. So in the call center, it's a human making a decision based on the information that they have at their fingertips, so it becomes very subjective what's being said there. And think about if I'm doing web self-service or coming into your website just to get information and you're trying to push information out, that's also very subjective as well because you don't necessarily know what the best thing to do is. And ultimately that means from an optimization perspective, it's difficult to monitor across these systems, and ultimately you're not really optimizing those interactions. So where we want to get to is a state where we can have the ability to unify your data. So Pitney Bowes has capabilities that allow you to unify the data that you're presenting to your customers in a holistic way. So we can go out and pull together different data from different data sources, but in addition to that, we can augment that data for you. So we can utilize analytics to add additional information under the covers. We can do address cleansing, data optimization. We can even add location information. So one of the things that's really important about your customer data, if you think about it, is oftentimes when you think about what do I know about my customer, it's mostly which products do they have from us. It's not necessarily what the context is for what the customer wants to do with you from an interaction perspective. So being able to collect information about why was I researching something on your website? Where was I at when I was doing a specific thing? Maybe I was at a kiosk or at a specific location, and being able to manage that and take advantage of that. Doing things around real-time learning, so understanding and learning about the interactions that you have with your customer over time and collecting that insight and using that as part of the customer context. And then finally, making good decisions about how we communicate. So being able to do the best next thing regardless of the channel that you're communicating on as part of it. And then appropriate, being relevant is about making sure that, if I'm going to send the customer a communication, maybe you're doing a video. I had an experience with my telco provider. I added high-speed internet service to my plan. And when I was on the phone with the call center rep, he said, "Would you like to consolidate your bill?" I said, "Great, that would be fantastic." So he put me on hold and sent me to someone else. Very annoying, so I hung up. Then that same vendor sent me this fantastic little video on how to read my bill, which to me was a little frustrating because, in fact, if they had understood the context of the conversation I had with the call center rep, Sending me a video about how to consolidate my bill would have been relevant and would have made me very satisfied, would have allowed me to do that. Today I still get 2 bills because I don't know how to do it and I don't have time to go figure it out. And then finally, from an optimization perspective, making sure that each of the communications you send on all of the different channels are reliable, they're enriched, they manage and adhere to your regulatory requirements, whether they're internal or external, are all things that we can help you do. Now, one of the things that's really important to understand is as you look at the problem of consistent and relevant communications across all of your different touch points, those span everything from marketing programs that you're doing, information that you're pushing on your website, if you have self-care sites, so you've got a sales and marketing site that might be separate from your self-care site. 2 different technologies are probably driving those. The information that your call center reps have access to is another place where you're communicating with your clients. One of the channels that often we don't think about as a channel of communication are your operational or your business communications. So you're doing things like you're sending your clients invoices or bills. That's how you're bringing revenue in. Whether you're doing it physically or digitally, that's a communication. And in fact, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's still the most read communication that any customer gets, and they still spend up to 3 seconds looking at it. So it's a good opportunity to make sure it's relevant and consistent. But also, depending on your business, there's policies, contracts, proposals, quotes, correspondence, notices, all of these business communications that also come from you as a business that are all in separate systems. And so for the solutions that we bring to market at Pitney Bowes, we're not trying to be the front-end system of engagement. So we're not trying to be your CRM vendor. What we want to do is make your CRM vendor more effective. And as a result of that, your call center reps, your self-service websites, your marketing websites more self-sufficient and effective. In addition to that, we're also not trying to be your back-office systems. You've got lots of systems of record in the back office where you're doing your policy admin, your banking systems, your business systems that really run your business. And we also recognize that, this whole problem across the customer lifecycle. I had a customer say to me once, look, I have 2 products for CRM. I have 2 other products that I use for customer communications. I have 2 additional products that I'm using for marketing, and I can't do customer engagement. Please help me. And so we really took a step back and looked at that problem and said, the best thing that we can do for our customers is offer them a service that can sit in between your systems of engagement. Those are the front office systems, the front end places where your customer can come and talk to you. And those systems of record, which are all the back office places that have all the information that you have about your customer. And we can sit as a service in between that, and we can take that data, utilize that data to create the right communication with the right content in it, in the right format, and deliver it on the right channel, depending on what the customer's interaction point is. So we can sit as a service between those 2 systems and help you have one platform for consistency of communications that you can serve up to any of those front office applications. And so the way that you can get the consistency is by having a single source of your content for all of the different channels that you're going to communicate with, but making sure that that source gives you the flexibility to consume your data and make those communications relevant. So making sure that it's not just personalized, which means I have your name in it, but it's actually relevant, which means, just like my example I just gave you about that video, making sure that I would have received a video on how to consolidate my bill, as opposed to one on how to read my bill. Making sure that if you're sending out a response to a query about a new product, that it's actually about the product I was querying for. Making sure that if I'm trying to send additional communications, a really good example is always the one where you send, a young child an offer for a phone bill or a credit card, something that they couldn't possibly have value for because they're just not the right demographic. So those are the kinds of capabilities that are going to be important to you as you start to think about how do I do consistent and relevant communications across all of my platforms. Now, the other thing to think about is that life cycle is huge. There's a lot of different systems. There's a lot of different communications. There's a lot of different processes that you need to be able to interact with. So we haven't seen one customer today come in and say, we need to do the whole thing. Now, you might have a strategy that says, this is our strategy, and the strategy is we want this single messaging system is how some people talk about it, or this single communication or single content system. But the idea is then you can go after the specific channels or the specific capabilities tactically. So you can look for a specific business problem like call center optimization, where maybe I want to do best next prompts for the call center rep and best next prompts into my self-service website, and I want to do better interactive correspondence consistently with a single platform. So maybe that's a place where you would start. Alternatively, it could be if you wanted to do something around customer self-care, where you want to be able to make sure that customers have access to the communications that you've sent to them through a repository of sorts in a way that they can easily get to that. But while they're interacting with that, they also have access to other consistent communications that you have delivered. And then the outcomes from being able to introduce a program like that, where you've got centralized capabilities around the communication processes, so you're not trying to make those changes in 12 different places, but instead you're making them in one central place, you're making them relevant, you're delivering them across your channels, is this whole idea that ultimately your goal is to retain your best customers because you're using analytics as part of it under the hood with your data to help create the right communications, decide what the right channels are to be using, and other business outcomes that are important, ultimately increasing revenue, reducing call center time, improving net promoter scores if that's what you're having to drive. Because ultimately, the one thing that customers expect is when I come into you, regardless of what channel, I want to have an experience that is consistent. So if I start on your website, don't finish there, come into the call center, please don't make me tell you everything again, and please make sure you know who I am and that you're communicating with me with relevance. And that can ultimately help you increase this real customer lifetime value. Now, one thing that often we see happen is organizations, as they start to focus on programs like this, are really thinking about what are the business outcomes that I'm trying to achieve when I spend the cost of doing a program around customer engagement. So they'll often think, I want to grow revenue, I'm trying to reduce costs, I'm trying to improve customer experience, reduce risk, whatever. We all know that we're all measured by driving business outcomes. That's why we live. But the most important thing to remember when you're trying to really refocus on the customer and improve your customer communications strategically is the customer is in the middle now. It used to be that the customer was on the outside and we pushed out to them. They're at the center. And so one of the other strategies that I want to leave you with for you to think about is as you think about all of the different business units that need to really work together now to be able to manifest a solution within an organization that can provide consistent communications with relevance. It's all about that customer. And again, we're all measured differently. We have different initiatives within our different business units. And so one of the nice tools that you can consider and think about to help you lay down your strategy with that customer in the middle is the idea of customer journey mapping. Now, customer journey mapping is something that Pitney Bowes can also help you with. And really, it's very much about thinking about how it feels to be a customer of your organization from the customer's perspective and designing the journey of how they interact with you as part of this process. But the customer is always in the middle. What's it like to onboard with us? What's it like to buy a new product? What's it like to call into the call center? What's it like to do self-care? And if you design all of these journeys, one of the best outcomes from this as you're thinking about the communication aspect is what are all the intersections or interaction points that I have on these customer journeys with my customers? How do they intersect? how are they chained together, understanding that different customers are going to go through the journey in different ways. Because if you can lay that framework down first as you're trying to lay down your strategic definition, this can help you really understand where are the different interaction points, where do I need to make sure I have consistency in those communications, where do things span businesses and suddenly break down internally, because our customers don't care that we have internal different lines of business. They see us as one company. And then how can I make the best optimized interactions as part of that process? All right, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Lisa. Now let's pass the event over to our next presenter, Chris Hall, Chief Marketing Officer at Transversal. Welcome to the program, Chris.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Lisa. Great talk. For those of you still on the webcast, I'm going to go through a few slides about the business problem, but get right into kind of what we do to solve that in a unique way, and also give you a chance to give you a sneak peek at some of the products that we currently have today and some coming out later this year. So I'll jump right into it. And, this is kind of the observation of the obvious slide, right? Today's digital consumer is more demanding. Providing consistent help across omni-channel world is challenging. And I think most of us have got re-engaged with the emergence of social channels. And even if you looked at a mobile channel, what used to be considered voice long ago is no longer voice. It's a digital channel in regards to customers consuming information. So technology certainly changed our world. And when I go to the next slide, I'm going to give a call out to all the Accenture folks that are on the call, or at least on the webcast here. I absolutely love Accenture's Consumer Pulse report every year. And in that report, there's some great information, not only into kind of dissecting where the problem is geographically in an industry, but they also they do a great job getting to the heart at what it means from an overall cost perspective. So I'll spend a little time on what I just mentioned, technology enabling the digital consumer in some huge ways. And I'll take the negative approach here instead of the positive approach that Accenture took. 79% of customers say we don't know them or provide them with a tailored experience, yet with all the big data and all the investments we've made in our IT infrastructure solutions today, we have the capability to. We all know this, that a third of us are influenced from a value perspective by social media, or at least social communities, when it comes to purchasing products or staying with a company. People really value what other people have to say. Now, obviously, you take that with a grain of salt. You could spend forever reading user opinions or be skeptical and not believe in them, but it has a huge influence on what consumers are doing today. And the last one, which I thought was really interesting, not only in the channels of delighting me, that customers are not happy with inconsistencies, but the number of average channels. And I don't think the graphic came through very well, but the average number of channels in the Accenture report that consumers were doing to research corporate solutions are 6. And that's just huge from the standpoint of where customers are going to really enable the digital consumer. Lastly, the cost of not solving these challenges are, when you get into the trillions of dollars, you're talking huge, huge corporate problems. Companies must adapt to the technology of where customers or consumers are being driven across the channels, from the standpoint of we're putting $5.9 trillion at jeopardy when consumers are not happy across the channels they're supporting. And for just in North America alone, it's $1.4 trillion. So how do we adapt to the empowered consumer? How do we adapt to the technology challenges that they are demanding, that we grow our businesses towards? It's fundamentally not doing the same things better. I think we've done a great job even from a products perspective, a great job making our products better, but we need to start doing things dramatically different for consumers, especially when we're talking about a $1 trillion problem. And that's kind of what we do at Transversal. We specialize in cognitive knowledge solutions. We come from traditionally the customer service side of the house, but our passion is to make it really easy for businesses to connect people to knowledge. I've worked for many CRM vendors, and I've worked for many channel vendors, and they are great solutions for making the channels efficient and more effective for the business, but not necessarily for the consumer, especially when they're just looking for information that should be readily available to them. And I would always say this is kind of the If you have children or if you remember being a child, the Ask Mom or Ask Dad approach, consumers can absolutely leverage omni-channel to their advantage. If I don't get what I'm looking for across email, I'll try the contact center, or if I don't, then I'll really escalate things over Twitter. So the consumer's being savvy, and as businesses today, we have to become more savvy. So what really drives us at Transversal and why we do what we do is we fundamentally believe there's a more innovative way for people to get good help. And what we've spent our research and development dollars on is what we call Prescience. It's our cognitive knowledge cloud platform that really truly understands what people search for, makes it simple and easy for them to find help, and anticipates what they will need to know next. That's kind of setting up what I'm about to show you from a demonstration example in the next few slides. So let's talk about doing things dramatically different. Why is it hard to achieve consistency across channels? Again, I'll state the observation of the obvious, right? Different channels, different people. Lisa mentioned subjectivity. Absolutely different skills, different tools, all lead up to different answers. And here I think there was a great quote done by an executive at Yahoo, Tish Whitcraft, who I believe wrote a book at one point, said, you know, variety is the spice of my life, but it's not in customer service. It's actually the death of customer service. And I would rather have, instead of 20% of my people answering things right, everybody answering it wrong, because that's a problem I can fix. If everyone is consistently answering things wrong, I can fix that problem. But if there's variety out there, it takes me astronomically longer to even approach how I'm going to fix that problem. Now, it's not only the person delivering, but the person asking. No two people ask the same question in the same way. And I think if you ever worked in a customer service environment, many words and phrases that people do use often have two totally different meanings. You know, and often if the initial question is too vague, where do you even begin to ask questions if you're new on the phone or even on an email? Where do you begin to ask the question of where to guide the customer next? So how do you even begin to research the answer when the real meaning to the inquiry is still in question? And it gets back to what Lisa talked about, subjectivity. Today we're leveraging a lot in the machine language and learning from a solutions perspective to kind of master the art of understanding customers' questions, because a human, it takes years. But for machines, I think you've seen a lot of cognitive stuff with Microsoft and even with IBM Watson. Those things take almost nanoseconds. So let me give you this, what I mean by example, and it is a lighthearted example, but I think you'll get the meaning of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to ask you a simple question. For those of you conceptually on the webcast right now, what kind of apple is this? Now, I'm talking to you on the phone or across the webcast, and I want you to visualize what I could potentially be looking at for me to ask you that question. What kind of apple is this? Now, if it's lunchtime, or if you're in the produce section of your supermarket, or if you happen to be in the Apple business, you probably visualize this. And I know we have some people from Apple on the webcast, so I think you people are visualizing this instead, especially if you saw the great WWDC presentation last week that I saw, some great innovations coming out from Apple. But you see a simple question had two totally different meanings in altogether. And if you put that in a complex environment, this is what both consumers and employees are getting. You're either getting search results in the hundreds of millions, thank God it's coming back in less than a half a second, but I'm stuck there researching to find out what I actually need. Or you're getting the absolute opposite. Your search results didn't receive any documents, try different keywords. What we're doing around Cognitive KM is making sure that we truly understand what people want. And in our Prescience platform, we have what's called the memory engine. On the right-hand side, if you can distinguish what's there from the resolution that I created here, I'm asking for problems with my iPlayer on the BBC's website. So many of us want to do catch-up service for Game of Thrones or any of your favorite TV programs. You're going to the website of Comcast or Time Warner or whatnot. And in the UK, it's the BBC. And I'm asking a simple question, problems with iPlayer on my Apple. And I'm getting some great results coming back in regards to which devices can access their player, or am I having problems on my Mac. All of those things, we're leveraging machine intelligence to know what you mean, not what you type. With full intent understanding of what you're asking and how you're asking the question, learning through experience, and the accuracy of what's coming back is extremely accurate. And what does that do? it improves consumer success online, improved online deflections to your internal teams. But for your internal teams, it also helps accelerate the training and proficiencies. Some of our customers say what used to take them weeks to train new clients around new employees around Christmas time, literally just set them in front of the tool, and they can pretty much find their answers within 1 or 2 seconds.
With 90% of the...
Let's talk about another way of doing things dramatically different. So why is it still hard for people to find the information they need? I just talked about search accuracy. Sure, that's one. But do you have information all over the place, or have you centralized your information? Do they have to navigate to your support page, or have you taken the extra step to provide knowledge in context to where they are, or in context to the device that they're actually using? Do your customers rely on social information? I'm sure they do. But is this information sanctioned by your business experts? Is anyone taking a look at that to make sure that consumers are just getting the wrong information by the peers, and we're not doing anything or saying anything about that, or even stepping in? And then when it gets a little bit more difficult, do you provide wizards or guides to help customers navigate those difficult inquiries that it really depends based upon the product or the portfolio they own, or the type of solution, or the year of the product that they own? And here's the great one. Customers never typically ask one question at a time. Of course they're going to ask multiple questions, especially if you're good at asking the initial ones. And I think we all know that when somebody calls you up on the phone and says, I only have one question for you, you know it's going to be a half-hour conversation. They're always saying what they're not going to do. So centralizing your knowledge is just the tip of the iceberg. But making it easier to access and consume is a whole bigger challenge. So what I thought I would do is kind of show you what I mean. Show you what I mean by a cognitive solution that's so easy the answer practically finds you. So in this scenario, what I'm demoing as an example of leveraging our solution over an iPhone or any kind of a smartphone device. And the scenario I'm going to demonstrate for you is my wife just called me. I'm on a business trip and said, hey, look, our refrigerator's in the fritz. We need something for the weekend. We have a big party, and the food's going to spoil. You need to get something right away. Now, I buy all my appliances at one place, and I'm going to use Marks & Spencer as a retailer in the UK as an example. And I need to know if I can get this thing overnight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my button for Siri and ask Siri a real simple question. Can I get next day delivery with Marks & Spencer? And obviously you're going to get the Siri little thing popping up there. And then what Siri is going to present you with is the first 3 answers are coming directly from our knowledge solution at Marks & Spencer. Can I get next day delivery? Again, I'm going to select the very top one. And again, a very natural user experience of being able to simply use your iPhone and get an answer. And you're going to see instantly, can I get next day delivery? In the context of what Marks & Spencer provides for next day delivery, if I scroll down, I'm going to say that I can get it delivered to a UK address for £4.95. Now, I doubt refrigerators are going to be shipped overnight for £4.95. But at the end of the day, it did answer my questions. They do overnight delivery. And when I select thumbs up, what we're going to do next is predict additional questions they're going to ask us. So related questions like, can I pick up a food order? Well, that makes no sense. But the one right in the middle, what happens if I'm out when you deliver? Because I'm traveling all the time? Absolutely. So I'm going to select that. What happens if I'm out when you deliver? And it's going to drive the answer to the next question. And it says there needs to be someone home to sign. I'm going to scroll down further that I need to sign for certain particular types of delivery. And again, a very simple answer to my question. But once again, you know, they even predicted the fact that, do you deliver to my postcode? It might want to double check that they're actually going to be able to deliver to exactly where my shipping address is. So I will select that one more time. And as I scroll down, it's asking for additional information. So I have to fill in its large appliances. I have to put in my postal code. And when I click check, it'll go to a back-end system, and you'll see it does deliver to my postal code. So I kind of wanted to show you a consumer experience that was a simple inquiry, leveraging our solution. But I think there wasn't a lot of typing involved. There wasn't a lot of difficult inquiries. And I'm on the channel of my choice to begin with to make it simple. And all that's being done through some of the tools in our Prescience platform called CrawlSmart. It's not a matter of just kind of storing our information in SEO, but we're doing that automatically. We're automatically optimizing. When you put information in our solution that we know most customers are going to start with Google and Bing for their experience. And on the right-hand side, you're even seeing, in my first example of problems with Apple on my iPlayer, all the BBC results coming back here in a natural Google Web result. We want to make sure that when you store information, especially if it's public information, certainly not for private or confidential, that we improve the natural findability to really minimize the customer effort. In one of our large banks in the UK, we've calculated that we're driving over 20,000 different specific incident web traffics to their website on an annual basis. And I think you're finding some of the crawl smart stuff kind of essential for mobile devices. On top of that, we're also anticipating what you will need next, called smart links. Now, a lot of you, if you can see the resolution that says related questions, saying, well, that's just easy enough to do. In most knowledge solutions, I would go in and I'd kind of relate the questions back and forth. But for 20,000 entry knowledge base, relating inquiries and changing inquiries and doing all of that manual administration is totally unnecessary. In our solution, we have self-learning technology. It auto-predicts and suggests what you need next. It kind of mimics the train of thought that I really just wanted to answer, do you do next day delivery? But then, I forgot to ask about, what happens if I'm not home, and do you deliver to my address? All of those intelligent kind of mobile navigation things that we kind of built in there. Kind of really the underlying thing is that it simplifies administration. Put the information in our knowledge base, and we'll do all the linking and the kind of intelligence behind it for you. Lastly, I want to talk about doing things dramatically different, leveraging social channels. How do we predict what people want to know next? How do we keep knowledge current, up to date? How can we keep frontline specialists? How can we get frontline specialists to share their experiences and their knowledge with us? How can we incorporate harvesting valuable information as part of the normal everyday process to make it really simple? And how can we be so timely with our responses that it was almost as if we predicted the problem before it occurred? How can we predict what people will want to know next? And kind of my concern, being in this industry over 25 years in customer service and even specializing in the knowledge space, one of the number one reasons that knowledge investments fail is stale information. The usage and adoption is great at the very beginning, but over time, and it can even be less than a year, once I've pretty much read everything I needed to in the knowledge base, I'm not going to use it over time if it's not be kept current. So we wanted to, basically, we're introducing a new product coming this fall where we said, there's a lot of stuff happening on social media monitoring that, hey, we're not a case management system, so we're not going to get involved in getting in conversations from that standpoint. But we also know that people managing knowledge have high performance management levels. So we kind of wanted to build a product that kind of combines social media monitoring with contact center performance management. So how can we best leverage these digital early warning signs that we're seeing across Twitter, across Facebook, or even across our own website? And how can we organize this chaos of social information? So I don't know what we're going to find, but if is there an intelligent solution that can organize for them, that might help. But who is best suited to do this with all this knowledge? So what we wanted to do is provide a solution that can help turn the noise into knowledge. So this fall, we're announcing a new product called TrendWatch, part of our cognitive KM stack that anticipates what you will need to know next. So what we're doing is kind of providing next generation insight into what could potentially hit your business. So we're monitoring digital streams in real time, from Twitter to email submissions to you're searching our knowledge base, to federators of information like Moreover social information. And what we're going to do is you don't have to know what to look for. So I don't have to look for, find, I don't want to use an example for anybody. Let's say it's find transversal and having difficulty. I don't have to write that in. We're going to auto cluster all the information that you point at. We're going to analyze those for themes and patterns. So obviously, if it's your Twitter site and we see themes and patterns, we're going to organize those for you. And on the right-hand side, we're going to cluster those into colors and put them on a volume of trends. And when things reach, when these themes reach higher than abnormal activity, we're going to send you an alert to say there's something happening in this particular area, please investigate. We want you to be the first to know what topics are reaching actionable levels and allow you to get out in front of that with proactive information to your consumers. And with that, I believe I'm at the very end. Back to you, David.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. Now let's move into our roundtable discussion. I have a few questions for our presenters, but before I get into that, I also just want to remind our viewers that if you have a question, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. As I stated earlier, we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been answered during the show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. Okay, so with that, let me target my first question at Lisa. Lisa, what channels often get overlooked when trying to ensure consistency?
Hi, that's a really good and interesting question. Interestingly enough, often the channel that gets overlooked the most is the channel that is your business communications. So billing, statements, EOBs, policies, contracts, proposals, correspondence. Because much of that happens just automatically out of the back office system, when you're looking to improve your communications in general, people don't even think about those things. But interestingly enough, I mentioned earlier the statement is still the most read communication that consumers receive. That can actually be used as a channel for marketing. So if you're doing things like pushing best, next, prompting type messaging strategies into your call center through your CRM app and through your self-service portal, you can also include your statement as part of that particular strategy and push those same kinds of best messages right onto your statement. Many of the providers in the ways that you're doing statements today would be able to support consuming that and introducing that into it. So that is one channel that's often overlooked. The other thing that is new and starting to emerge more and more is this channel known as video. And so being able to, right now video has been mostly used as a bill explainer. And so traditionally driven out of CRM to help reduce calls to the call center with questions about the bill. There's also a lot of video that's starting to be consumed by marketing, and most of those videos are not personalized at all, or if they are personalized, they're fairly limited in their relevance. And so the idea that you can create interactive videos as a channel, as an emerging new type of channel, is something that's really starting to take hold and get a lot of traction. And one thing that's nice about it is it's appealing to a lot of different demographics that you're doing business with, because a lot of younger generation people, they like video, they like it because it's quick. The thing about interactive is I don't have to sit and watch a 15-minute video for explaining my bill. I can click around in it and just get the information I want and get done. But even other generations are, as you use mobile devices and other kinds of interaction, the video is often a really effective way and new channel for you to be able to use.
All right, thanks for that. Do you have any? Do you have to manually create different content and a different tool for each channel you want to deliver to?
Absolutely not. In fact, if that's where you're at today, that's a good reason to be able to be looking for a solution like ours, where you can create content in one tool, and then you can have that basically dynamically pulled together using different kinds of content relevant rules, whether they're driven by analytics or human defined, to pull together the right communication for a specific channel. The biggest problem organizations have today is the fact that they do have multiple tools. So there's marketing using different tools for their communications. The CRM teams are often using, tools that are built right into the CRM app, even if it's just a text box. And then the back office systems have a lot of things built in. So really your goal should be moving to a unified tool that allows you to create and manage that content in a single repository that can be collaborated upon by many people and many different owners of content, but that I don't have to have different tools to do it, because otherwise your cost, today one of the biggest costs in the business is duplication of content assets, duplications of tools to create those assets, and then when there's a change that comes in, the change project is enormous. And so you really definitely want to be looking for a single tool that can support it for you.
All right, another question for you, Lisa. Do you have any tips on creating consistent messages?
The biggest tip is really making sure that you have access to your customer data as part of it, because consistency and I kind of look at consistency and relevance as two pieces that are important. And so you want to make sure that you're using good data on the way in so that you can dynamically pull together the right content for your messages. Consistency comes from that single source again. So like I said, for the design environment, the same is true for sourcing your messages for all the different channels. If you have multiple sources, that is the biggest reason and barrier to being able to be consistent. So the more you can move things into a single content management repository, and by the way, I don't mean a content management system, because the the content management systems, while they can store content, they're not good at creating relevant communications for delivery. That was where they tried to head, but that just has not manifested itself. So you really need to look for a tool that can allow you to manage your content centrally, but that can pull it together dynamically with relevance for the right channel and format it properly for that channel as well.
All right, Lisa, thanks for that. Now, let's pull in Chris Hall at Transversal. I have a few questions for you, Chris. You mentioned centralizing corporate knowledge. Did you mean one central location or one central knowledge base, and could you elaborate on that?
Not an easy answer, David. I guess if you have a really simple company, then yeah, simple answer. It could be one knowledge base in one centralized location. But I think over the years, I hate to use the consultative advice, it depends, but even companies with a simple knowledge base or even companies with a simple product line may have different languages and different product dimensions based upon geographic locations. So it has to deal with product complexity. It also has to deal with the answer of whether you have one or multiple. And I guess we really don't care whether you just have one place to manage everything, because that's not going to be realistic. The bigger question you might want to ask is who in the company owns it and who in the company owns what. It's drastically different here in the U.S. In our world. At least I might see different things from a marketing standpoint or communication standpoint. But in our world of knowledge, it's traditionally in the high-tech sector for customer service, software companies, so-and-so. And we often collide with companies that create SharePoint directories and content management solutions. But in the U.S., it's predominantly customer care people that own the IP around what gets distributed to customers from an answer perspective. In the U.K., it's digital asset media people. I think the bigger challenge for an organization might not be what solution you use, but how you have kind of a one central mindset around managing and keeping knowledge alive in an organization. And that's why I think when you look at the discipline of our market, it's just as consultative, leveraging good solution integrators like Accenture, KPMG, or Wipro, than it is on that. So, the question might not come down to what, it might come down to who for an organization. I'll leave it at that because there's probably more questions I created than an answer.
All right, I appreciate that. The next question is, was the solution you presented from Marks & Spencer a mobile phone app or just enabled for mobile devices?
No, that's a great question, and it kind of dovetails with a question you asked Lisa earlier. I mean, do you have to create content do you have to create content for multiple different uses or different channels? And part of what we leverage is technology, and part of what we leverage is practice, and something in our platform we call Device Smart. We leverage responsive design techniques to ensure that whatever you can see on the web is also visible on mobile devices. So that's kind of a technology practice, but it also is how you store content, the images you store and the navigations you store. So what you just saw today in the clickstream was a mobile-enabled application. So whether I went to Marks & Spencer's site on the website or whether I went to a mobile phone, it's the same underlying platform. But we also, because there's some great statistics, I think it's inside of Accenture's report that basically says customers would rather use your mobile app than use your mobile-enabled website. So we've had to go the other way as well. So customers like banking customers, we have our application sitting right inside. So it's a little bit different to enable the application, because at that point we no longer can leverage Surrey. We have to enable some of the Surrey protocols so that you can use our capability of natural language in there. So the one you saw was mobile enabled, but we also have specific APIs to embed it into your mobile applications.
All right, great. Thanks, Chris. And another question for you. Is your solution for customer self-service only, sorry?
Predominantly we're sold in self-service environments, whether it's employee self-service for HR or whether it's for customer service on the web. But now I would say the majority of our implementations, when they go really well on the web, are leveraged in the contact center as well to give agents contextual guided advice. So we have a lot of integrations with all the major CRM players, from Salesforce to Oracle to Genesis. I don't want to leave out anybody, to SAP. It's just kind of our nature of being a small company, got to play well with all the big guys. We just kind of add intelligence to their desktops.
All right, great. Thanks for that. And it looks like we are out of questions for today, so I'd like to thank everyone who submitted questions, and thanks to our presenters today, Lisa Sutrick, Managing Director of Customer Engagement Solutions at Pitney Bowes, and Chris Hall, Chief Marketing Officer at Transversal.